By 1935, Huey Long was the undisputed master of Louisiana. He was U.S. Senator and virtual governor. He had dragged Louisiana belatedly into the 20th century. However, the lure of and fascination with unchecked power eventually proved fatal to Long in the end. After Huey Long had passed, his operatives soon moved to consolidate power and share his throne. But their corruption, previously controlled by Huey, soon caused major scandals and divisions in the state. And it all supposedly began with the man you see in the picture right there, Dr. Carl Austin Weiss, the supposed assassin of Huey Pierce Long. And so, in this lesson, we will see the death of Huey Long and the birth of Longism. The Share Our Wealth program, the assassination, and notice I have a question mark there. We'll explain that question mark. The Long legacy, and then the Louisiana hayride scandals. Typical of Huey Long, he is leading the LSU band on a parade through downtown Houston, Texas, as LSU is about to take on its long-standing rival, Rice University. Only Huey Long would have a parade for LSU in the opposing team's home city. One year after Huey Long was elected governor of Louisiana, the Great Depression began in 1929. Of course, the joke was, among many people in Louisiana, when they were told that the Great Depression had happened, the people of Louisiana said, well, welcome to the party. We've already been here for 10 years in Depression. But this depression was the greatest economic collapse of all time. It was worldwide in scope. It had a tremendous political ramification, especially in nations like Germany. In America, farmers and industrial workers were the hardest hit. Louisiana, of course, didn't strongly feel the depression because it was already poor and depressed. But many possible programs were halted. This gave rise in 1932 to Franklin Delano Roosevelt and the New Deal, and a series of federal programs, such as Social Security eventually, the National Recovery Act, the Civilian Conservation Corps, the CCC, and the WPA, the Works Progress Administration, giving people the opportunity to go back to work on the government dime. You also saw financial reforms and regulations, the Securities and Exchange Commission, the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, which you see in all the gold shields of your banks, and, of course, Social Security. Long's program was called Share Our Wealth. It actually predated the New Deal. And here you see a long list of what Huey Long's Share Our Wealth program was. And many people today would equate this with socialism. And it was indeed a social program. I strongly invite you to see and look at every one of those points. The Depression actually helped Long grab even more power. Economic crises often allow that sort of thing. He made municipalities such as the city of New Orleans dependent upon state government. He dominated and bullied the legislature by promising people or threatening to withhold programs from their districts. He dominated and bullied O.K. Allen, his successor as governor, oftentimes leaving him behind in the entourage, and often joking that O.K. Allen would sign a leaf if it blew in from the window. He gerrymandered districts to favor Longite candidates, and I strongly advise you to look up what gerrymandering is. It's a current crisis today. And he openly insulted people, and this often included questioning their parentage by insinuating that there was, shall we say, coffee in the cream, insinuating that there was a black relative down the family tree, which was the ultimate insult in a southern white state. In 1935, Long announced that he would run for the presidency. In the meantime, in Louisiana, he tried to push through House Bill Number 1, which was a judicial redistricting plan. And a man that would find himself out of a job because of this judicial redistricting plan, was 16th Judicial District Judge Benjamin Pavie of St. Landry Parish. In addition, Long had made insinuations about Pavie's parentage. And so on September the 8th, 1935, at the State Capitol building, Dr. Carl Austin Weiss, the son-in-law of Judge Benjamin Pavie, confronted and accosted Huey Long in the hallway. What happened next is now part of conjecture. Long was wounded in a hail of gunfire that killed Weiss, almost desiccated his body. Long was wounded in the stomach and the kidney. He then went down the stairs, was put into the car by Judge Jimmy O'Connor, who wasn't a judge at the time, taken to Our Lady of the Lake Hospital, and then he died of internal bleeding and infection on September the 10th. Many people say that it was because Long's doctors screwed up. The regular doctors would have gotten it right. Huey Long was dead at the age of 42. We do not know exactly what happened in that hallway. What we do know is that when Austin Weiss's body was exhumed and autopsied, 61 bullets came out of his corpse. Was Huey Long a dictator or the first of the modern politicians? He brought roads and bridges that were second to none. He built schools and hospitals throughout Louisiana. He established health care for state workers well ahead of the nation. He was the template for Roosevelt's New Deal in many ways. But many felt he did not do enough in the area of race relations. He often placed figureheads in office because, as a populist leader and a dictator that he was in many ways, he was afraid of men of ability. And so he put men who were not of ability in office. And he relegated men of ability to insignificant positions, like his own brother Earl. And he left the door open for corruption. This is an artist's depiction of Huey Long being shot in the hallway as he runs from the hail of bullets as Weiss is being killed. This is very pro-Long and anti-Weiss. Just a little warning, you click next, you will see the corpse of Dr. Weiss after he was shot to death. And there you see Long in his casket as people pass by in the rotunda of the Capitol. That is Huey's younger brother, the youngest of the Long family, Earl Long, who would soon be lieutenant governor and then serve as governor of Louisiana on several occasions. We will get to him very soon. Here you see a bill showing carry on the work of Huey Long and O.K. Allen, who had also died in office, putting forth Allen Ellender for the U.S. Senate and Dick Lesh as governor and Earl Long as lieutenant governor. The Louisiana hayride scandals were a series of scandals that followed in the wake of the Long assassination. James A. Noe became governor when O.K. Allen died in 1936, and he appointed Rose McConnell Long to the Senate to finish Huey's term. Jimmy Noe had founded the WNOE radio station in 1936, and the ballot was Dick Lesh and Earl Long, who you see in the picture there, Dick Lesh that is, and Cleveland Deer ran as the anti-Long candidate and Mesa Spencer as the anti-Long candidate. Richard Dick Lesh was a native of New Orleans and was Huey Long's Senate campaign manager, and he would be elected as governor, and he said when he was elected governor, "When I became governor, I didn't take no vow of poverty." The Lesh administration was a 26-point plan of improvement for the state. Continue most Long programs, give a tax on soft drinks, a $2,000 homestead exemption, a homestead exemption to surviving spouses and widows. He kept payroll at the maximum to reduce unemployment, established a state Department of Industry and Commerce. But Lesh was one of the most corrupt governors of all time, and he was aided and abetted by James Monroe Smith, known as Jimmy the Stooge, the president of LSU. What happened was that they took funds that were earmarked for the WPA. This was called, ironically, the Second Louisiana Purchase. The WPA built parks and bridges and things like Storyland and City Park and libraries. And many of the WPA funds and materials were being used on private homes, like Jimmy the Stooge's home. States reporter Meigs Frost and photographer Willie Dockan did their investigative reporting and found out about this. In the end, the investigation resulted in 200 indictments for income tax evasion, mail fraud, and theft. On June the 26th, 1939, Lesh resigned and then was tried and convicted of mail fraud and sent to federal prison for 4 years. Later, he would be pardoned by President Truman and returned to practice law in New Orleans the rest of his life. Earl Long then became governor of the state of Louisiana for the first time. He was succeeding the last year of Dick Lesch's administration. Here you see a picture of Governor Lesch in the car with President Roosevelt in New Orleans, kicking off the beautification of City Park. You go through City Park, you'll see many of the bridges and the roads have WPA on the sides of them, and Franklin Delano Roosevelt Mall.